Over the last year, I've been reporting on grassroots activism at town halls across the country with regard to Medicare for All. So I've been talking about how activists will show up to Democratic town halls and ask them to co-sponsor Medicare for All. And if they don't, then we'll call them and put pressure on them, and hopefully they will co-sponsor it. Now, after months of activism and putting pressure on politicians, H.R. 676, which is John Conyers' Medicare for All bill, now has 117 co-sponsors, and Medicare for All has more support than ever before. And this is the direct result of grassroots activists fighting for Medicare for All and putting pressure on politicians to support Medicare for All. Now, I do have some updates regarding the politicians that were covered. So, as you all know, I talked about Brad Sherman and his town hall that Lauren Steiner showed up to, and she asked Brad Sherman why he has not co-sponsored John Conyers' Medicare for All bill, H.R. 676. And this was his response.
Right now, I've got the entire Republican caucus chanting, repeal and replace Obamacare. I am not anxious to be quoted as and every point at me and say he wants to repeal and replace Obamacare. I want to build. I will have to check with some of my colleagues on this. I think the next step is a public option. That is the next step. And that's where we should have gone in 2008.
Yeah, that answer wasn't encouraging. I didn't like it. I know that people in the town hall then that attended it didn't like that answer. And I know Lauren Steiner didn't like that answer. And a lot of my viewers didn't like it too, because we then put pressure on Brad Sherman to change his mind. Hello, Brad Sherman. My name is Mike Figueredo, and I noticed that on Bill H.R. 676, you are one of the few Democrats that has not co-sponsored this bill. Now, as you know, H.R. 676 would make single-payer healthcare a reality in America. So I'm wondering if the $21,000 that you took from health industry super PACs had any influence on your decision. Take a stand, have a spine, and co-sponsor H.R. 676. Thank you. So I called him. You guys called him. Grassroots activists have been putting pressure on him. And now, I am happy to report that as of August 18th, Brad Sherman became the 117th co-sponsor of H.R. 676. You did this. If you called Brad Sherman, if you tweeted to Brad Sherman, if you sent him an email, if you showed up to a town hall with Brad Sherman, you have yourself to thank. And this proves that putting pressure on politicians does work. Now, does it always work? No, it doesn't, because I have another update for you regarding Denny Heck. Now, Denny Heck is someone who represents the 10th Congressional District of Washington State, and he was asked why he hasn't co-sponsored H.R. 676, and this was his pathetic, sorry excuse for a response.
I've declined to become a co-sponsor of H.R. 676, and I do so because I frankly don't think it's fully formed. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Well, you shake your head, give me a chance. Okay? It's okay that we disagree. I'm okay on that.
Needless to say, that answer didn't sit very well with his constituents, and I certainly didn't like his answer. So, same thing, like we did with Brad Sherman. We gave Denny Heck a call and let him know that he needs to get on board with Medicare for All. I've called Denny Heck. Thousands of people called Denny Heck. His constituents have called Denny Heck repeatedly about H.R. 676, and we want him to co-sponsor H.R. 676, and we've been calling him for months, and he is refusing to acknowledge that we even exist or care about this issue. And because of this, we will be trying to primary him in 2018, because his reluctance to support this, we know, is contingent on the fact that he has taken thousands of dollars from the health insurance industry, and that's not acceptable. So if he doesn't co-sponsor H.R. 676, we will be doing everything we can to make sure that he loses his seat. Thank you. Now, after putting pressure on Denny Heck to co-sponsor H.R. 676 for months, he still has refused to get on board with the idea of single payer in the deep blue state of Washington. So before I tell you what we're going to do next, I want to tell you about someone who did the same thing, named Ruben Kihuen. You all know Ruben Kihuen is someone who refused to listen to his constituents after they literally begged him to support John Conyers' Medicare for All bill. And months later, the constituent that asked Ruben Kihuen to support Medicare for All announced that she would be primarying him so that way she could co-sponsor it herself. So that was huge. Ruben Kihuen became the first incumbent Democrat to be challenged primarily due to his unwillingness to support Medicare for All. And I think that's really important because it shows how much momentum Medicare for All is gaining. But I want to get back to Denny Heck. So we all know that we've put pressure on Denny Heck. We've called him, we've tweeted to him, we've emailed him. He just doesn't support Medicare for All. So what are we going to do about that? Well, I am happy to introduce you to Tamborine Borrelli. Tamborine Borrelli is the primary challenger to none other than Denny Heck.
My name is Tamborine Borrelli, and I am a candidate for Washington's 10th Congressional District. And I am running against the incumbent who not just doesn't support single payer, but boldly rejects single payer. And if that was not bad enough, in his town halls has, I might even say, the arrogance and confidence to look his constituents in the eye, and I was there and have it on tape, to tell us, those that put him in office, exactly, that not only does he reject single payer, but that none of us will ever change his mind on the subject, and he didn't even stop there, but that we were wrong because we do support it.
Get the heck out!
Let's get the heck out of Congress! I think we just created a hashtag, I'm not sure. So we live in one of the most progressive and forward-thinking states in the country. I mean, you know, Washington leads the way. And I know that D.C., Washington, D.C., is known for being the home of politics. But I'd like to think that our home here in Washington, that we're the new Washington, that we are the ones, the driving force that will create what politics will be and should be. Not because we have deep pockets, but because it's driven by the people who are committed to making it so. The people that are sitting here on the steps and people like you.
Is she not amazing? That was fantastic. And she is primarying him mostly due to his unwillingness to co-sponsor HR 676. So Denny Heck becomes Democrat number 2 who's getting primaried because they won't back Medicare for All. And there's question in Washington, D.C. about whether or not Medicare for All is a litmus test. Well, you can ask Ruben Kihuen and Denny Heck about whether or not it's a litmus test. Now, the thing about Tamborine Borrelli is that she's not just running on Medicare for All, she's also running on a very progressive platform, a living wage, tuition-free public colleges and universities, campaign finance reform, electoral reform. I mean, she's the full package. She's great. So if you want to support Tamborine Borrelli and learn more about her campaign, you can go to tamborineborrelliforcongress.com to find out how to support her. And I want to reiterate what I've said before. To all the corporate Democrats who think that they can reject their constituents' desire for them to co-sponsor HR 676 and get away with it, you can't. You absolutely can't. And if you think you still can, well, then you need to talk to your colleagues, Ruben Kihuen and Denny Heck, and they're going to tell you exactly what happens if you don't get on board with Medicare for All. Your job is jeopardized, and you might be primaried by someone who will. So, yeah, I'm really excited to welcome Tamborine Borrelli to the already progressive list of 2018 candidates. and bring it on. Let's support her campaign and kick Denny Heck out of Congress.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.